Hi everyone, it's Kathy. Thank you so much for joining me. It's time for another collaboration with my friend Marla over at Mad About Cards and Crafts. And this month we decided to do stenciling with Nuvo Drops. So I'll be using the My Favorite Things framework stencil, the Sunflower Daisy stamp set from Altenew, and the Wave Ribbon Banner Stack from LDRS. There is a stamp set that goes with the Wave Ribbon Banner Stack die, but I ended up using one of the sentiments from the stamp set. The Nuvo Drops that I used are Copper Penny and White Blizzard. I started out with a piece of Cougar Super Smooth cardstock, and it is cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I decided to do a tealish colored background, so I started with Catherine Pooler's Twilight ink and started doing ink blending in the upper left and bottom right hand corners, and I am using a makeup brush to do my ink blending. After I was done with the Twilight ink, I came in with Aquatini ink and I blended that into the Twilight a little bit, and I did that both at the more on the top left and then on the bottom right, and I left a strip down the center. After I was done with the Aquatini ink, I came in with Catherine Pooler's Mint to Be and filled in that white stripe down the center. Now, a couple of notes here. One of the things about the Catherine Pooler inks is I love how they blend. I know right now it looks kind of like a hot mess and very blotchy, but once the cardstock gets really very saturated with the inks, they blend beautifully, and by the time the ink totally dries, it's a pretty seamless blend. I did end up doing the ink blending twice, just to make sure that I did get that cardstock nice and saturated. After I was done with the ink blending, I did let that panel dry a little bit before I did the stenciling, and I used washi tape just to hold my piece of cardstock to my stencil. And the one thing that I really love about these collaborations with Marla is she really makes me step outside of my comfort zone. I would have never thought to do stenciling with my Nuvo Drops, but I'm glad that she suggested it because I really like the look of it and it's pretty easy to use. The bottles of Nuvo Drops, whereas they're not giant bottles, but if you literally just do drops every time you use them, the bottles are going to last forever. And at least this way I feel like I'm using my supplies in a good way. So back to how I started to do the stenciling. At first I just did drops in random places on the stencil, and then I used the wider palette knife because I thought that that would be easier to use. I did watch a couple of videos on it and everybody used the rubber spatula tool, and I didn't have that, so I figured I would use this. And it worked out well, but I quickly figured out that I was going to be able to spread it out more evenly and a lot faster if I added it directly to the palette knife. And then I went back to just applying it directly to the stencil. I guess the takeaway lesson from this is you can't use little dots. You got to use a lot of it to get it to spread around. So I go back and forth here and I just keep adding it, and I didn't want to cover the whole panel. I wanted to have that abstract type of appearance. I don't know that the White Blizzard made that much of a difference. The glitter kind of shows up, but the Copper Penny is so pretty and so metallic. I could have used that by itself and it would have been just as pretty. The other nice thing about using Nuvo Drops with a stencil is because you're spreading them out so thin, they dry pretty fast. I let this panel set maybe 20 minutes before I started playing around with the layout of my card. So that's definitely a bonus, is that it does dry pretty quick. After I was done with the stenciling, I set that panel off to the side so that it could dry. And I already had these flowers stamped out from a previous project that I had done, and I saved them, and I'm glad that I did because it turned out that these colors worked perfect for my copper and teal background. But what I was trying to do here is I wanted to put my little bunch of flowers and leaves together first. I knew that I wanted to pop them up with foam tape, but I wanted them to be evenly popped up. So I used my tape runner just to hold the flowers together and hold the leaves in place. And once I was happy with where everything was positioned, I did end up putting a whole bunch of foam tape on the back side of those flowers. I did run my background panel through my die cutting machine with a stitched rectangle die, and I used my tape runner to adhere that to the front of a top folding A2 size note card. I wasn't too sure about how this would look with a white border around that background, but when I was playing around with the layout, since there is a little bit of a white border on my flowers and leaves, it actually worked out really well to have that white border around the note card. So anyway, you saw that I was putting a whole bunch of foam tape on the back side of those flowers, and once I had all the foam tape in place and all the release paper removed, I popped those into place on the front of my card. For the sentiment, I just die cut the wave ribbon banner stack from white cardstock, and I used the sentiment Grateful for You from the Sunflower Daisy stamp set, and I used a dark chocolate brown ink to stamp the sentiment. I just used liquid glue to adhere that in place, and that finishes up my card for today. Don't forget to check out Marla's video. It's linked in the description box below for you. And thank you so much for joining me. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you've not yet subscribed, I'd love it if you would. And don't forget to ring the bell so you're notified every time a new video is posted. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.